What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We are ready to start a new week. A very, very frustrating end to last week with the Luka injury for me, so I took the weekend off. I enjoyed it. We just did the QL TV show, which was good for basketball. And now we're ready to bring you some baseball. Sheets, how are you doing over there?
Good. I did the opposite of taking the weekend off. I played literally every slate and every sport that you could even imagine. And as expected, I won money in NASCAR and MMA and lost money in baseball and basketball. So that's the
Well, at least, it's whatever it is, whatever works. I did have a golf going over the weekend though.
My big suck out over the weekend was my biggest buy-in in golf was the big single entry. Right. And I cashed by like 4 percentage points with 4 guys making the cut. So that was
that's crazy. Yeah, I actually was pretty deep in that tournament because I had 5 guys who made the cut, but nobody wasn't like
I had 4 guys that made the cut, including no Dustin Johnson, and that still squeaked in and cashed.
So I had a lineup with that basically I just wanted to talk about really quick because I'm not sure that it was everything that so it basically was. So I finished 160th place in the big one, and it was a 5 out of 6. It had Jay Harris English, Russell Henley, who was unowned at 14, 15 under or whatever he ended up at.
I think you need to get a little closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry about that. I had to correct something in my thing over here, and I had to get some water because I knew it was going to be a long day. All right. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's just, one of those weeks. I actually did make money in golf, so it felt good to, have another winning week in golf, but it would have been nice to make a little more. Tonight's baseball slate is weird. It's got some good pitching, but it's really, for the life of me, we're going to have to talk about some hitters because I might be struggling a little more with the slate hitting-wise than I have in a while. So let's get into it. You ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, let's pull your screen up. We'll go game by game here.
Yep.
We can talk overall about the pitching options if you want to first, because I think that it's pretty basic on DraftKings for me, but there's options, but I feel like I'm starting to get too cute when I just avoid playing the best pitchers.
Well, it's funny. That's what because I was going to ask you, I was going to say, is this is like got all the classic Bobby pivots, like ready to be played if you wanted to do it. I didn't know if I was able to do it. So I'm trying to see if maybe you could do it for me.
Like multi-entry, even on like FanDuel with one pitcher, playing guys like Maeda today. Yeah, are going to be really, really interesting ways to go because there's absolutely a path. I just think that first of all, Trevor Bauer is always he's my favorite pitcher in general for DFS. I just think that there's nobody who's I feel more secure at throwing him as many innings. And say what you will about baseball projections. I'll just tell you that they all don't exist or don't work anymore. For pitchers especially. It's kind of hilarious that a pitcher could have a 16 fantasy point projection or a 20 point on some sites when we scored 36, 36, 36, and 40. And the matchup is against the highest strikeout team, second highest strikeout team against righties in baseball. It's weird to me. It's almost like I'm confused by it. And oddly enough, in this game, it's not like, he's favored to give up some runs, which is fine. But he's my favorite pitcher, and I'm going to just play a ton of him and Lance Lynn, and then I'm going to figure out other pieces maybe if I need to, but I'm not even sure I'm going to need to.
Yeah, so
oh, you got the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
these are my, again, I didn't really build much, but so pitching wise, we can go game by game if you want, but to me, you're either playing both these guys or one of these guys with what's his name, with Luzardo, you know what I mean? And then aside from that, it depends how much you want to pay up for hitting. Or, if you want to pivot, then you can go do stuff like Maeda or Savale or something like that. I mean, not that those are the worst plays in the world. But I think that's where most people are going. I don't know if people are going to go with Casey Mize or maybe, I don't know, but I don't think you need to.
Yeah. I actually think he's in play. It's kind of an interesting differentiating build if you're playing a bunch of lineups. Both, I don't think that Alec Mills is out of the question either by any means. But do we need to do it? That's just where we're going to end up.
Well, it's interesting. We'll get to that game, I guess, pretty soon. But, if you do like Casey Mize, you're probably going to be, getting double leverage on probably the chalkiest stack of the day. So
the problem is, yeah, exactly. But the thing is that, obviously, Casey Mize will have some ownership. Not much. But I'm trying to figure out. So my feelings about liking to stack against these guys. Let's switch it over to the hitting. I love it. I love to stack against young pitchers who are new, especially for patient teams. But I'm telling you, I'm not as in love with it today. I feel like this might bite me, and I feel like this is the obvious spot to go to, especially with a young guy who can get in trouble and then a terrible bullpen behind him. I like Caratini as a catching option. He's cheap. He's getting popular. Makes a lot of sense. I like Ian Happ. I like Kyle Schwarber. I like Baez. I like all the guys. Contreras and Rizzo are fine and all that stuff. They're going to be such chalk to me that unless that somehow changes, I probably will just try not to play too many of these guys. Maybe use a couple one-offs that are cheap because they're all cheap. But like, or if you're going to do like a stack, like instead of using Kyle Schwarber, play a 4-man Cubs stack with like a Eddie Rosario one-off or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do something, because I think you're going to see, like, we only have 7 games. I think the ownership is not going to be spread out at all. So I think you're just going to have incredible ownership on the Cubs. So I'm trying to find ways to fade that on a small slate against a guy with some of the best stuff in baseball, but he's just a young pitcher. Okay, let me rephrase that. We'll say that about him a year from now, but this guy, I truly believe he's the next great, Detroit pitcher. That not going to be as great as, the last few, but still he's a good pitcher. So I'm using the fact that he's a good pitcher as a reason to try and fade this team. That's where I'm at. How about you?
Okay. So let's start with you. Want to start with Minnesota, Cleveland?
Well, no, you should talk about Chicago if you like them.
Oh, I was just going to say they're rated to be one of the chalkier teams, and for me, I mean, just building kind of like best plays lineup. I do think Schwarber's probably really dirt cheap on FanDuel, and I like him. I like Bodie. I like Caratini, like you said, but again, I don't like to play chalk hitters, but whatever. Rizzo would be the next guy I would have. And I definitely have interest in the Cubs, but like you said, I mean, they're going to be wildly chalky, and it's hitting, it's baseball. It's not like it's not like they have Ryan Sandberg coming up soon. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're that great. Yeah, so it's, or Ernie Banks, and you get the 2-man with Ernie Banks and what's his name, and Ryan Sandberg. They need to be in business. Yeah. But, I mean, they're fine. They're one of the teams I'm looking at. So I like you said, I like Caratini if he gets a start. I like Rizzo, Schwarber, and Bodie's really cheap. So, and Happ also.
Yeah. I mean, I like all those guys. I just don't, I'm not going to play the chalk stack on a 7-game slate. Like, look, if I end up maxing out the FanDuel one, there's no way that Cubs don't end up in some of my stacks and lineups. And part of the reason, there's a team I like that I think maybe I don't know, we'll see. But there's a team that I really am into potentially stacking that I could pair with the Cubs that might be a little bit. So on FanDuel, I could actually get into the 4-man stack a little bit better.
Okay.
Anyway, that's where I'm at. But I actually like, even though I have some interest in Mills, I kind of like Detroit. I mean, one thing about this game, pretty good hitting conditions. Even though it's Detroit, it's actually pretty damn good. So, that lends itself a little bit to playing them even more. But you have these incredibly cheap, Detroit bats that you can play all over the place. And I'm curious to see where the ownership ends up on them. And I'm sort of going to let that dictate some of my stuff. Alec Mills has had a pretty low K rate this year, and he's had some tough matchups, but still, he used to have a really good K rate from when he was a bullpen pitcher, but we haven't really seen the same upside since he's been a starter quite as much. I mean, I guess he's had some decent striking out 7 Milwaukee guys is basically a given if you're going to pitch 6 innings. So, I mean, there's nothing to be so excited about with him. I don't think you need to have him on this slate. I also don't think he's like a guy who I'm afraid of taking hitters against, and he does get a little bit walk happy with a pretty decent bullpen behind him, but they're mediocre, So all those reasons you could make an argument for a stack, and trying to find individual plays is kind of tricky because none of these guys are the kind of guys you want to play as one-offs. But Miggy Cabrera, Victor Reyes, Jacoby Jones, Kristen Stewart, they just stand out because their prices are so low. And then you've got an actual really good hitter like Jonathan Scope, who you can mix in, or you can mix in a good room who's, and then on FanDuel you can do it. You can play whoever you want. You can do literally whatever you want on FanDuel because there's a lot of cheap bats out there anywhere you want. So I don't know if you'll end up getting here, but you could throw Candelario. For me though, I guess if I had to pick one, I like Stewart if he's higher in the order because he's got some power. It's hard to find the one-offs though. You know what I mean? Like you want to naturally do it, but do I really want to use this guy as one of my outfield spots or something? It's just something to think about.
You could use Isaac Parodies at 2,200.
Yeah, and batting ninth. I think I'll pass. I think I'll take the 2,800 guys batting second and third who have talent.
I think so.
He did hit a grand slam the other day, but things happen. But yeah, I certainly don't mind them. I guess Scope would be the best hitter from here, but on DraftKings, you're partly like the stack because the savings, and he doesn't give you the same savings. So it's a matter of ownership for me, but I definitely will have some exposure. And I honestly don't love like any position that much tonight, so I don't mind playing Cabrera tonight more than most nights. I like outfield actually tonight. But other than that, I don't have like a strong opinion about the positions.
Okay. Okay, you want to look at Minnesota Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay, so from a pitching perspective, this is Pivot City, right? This is Savali against Maeda. And either of these guys, if you wanted to get off of Lynn, for example, or Bauer or both or whatever, these are the guys that you might consider going to. I don't know if I can do it. I just feel Bauer's such a freaking strong play that I really want to start with him. And that's not to say that Lynn is such a lock. I could certainly go for either of these guys, maybe as my second spend up if that's the way I wanted to build. I regard both of them as kind of very similar. I know Maeda's had the big freaking – actually, they both had big ceiling games, right? They both are pitching really, really well. It's hard for me to argue against these, except that they, again, their matchups aren't that great. But yet they have their strikeouts in the lineups too. You know what I mean? So
yeah, they're not really comparable as pitchers. Maeda's awesome. Savali's an average pitcher.
Okay.
That's my take. I'm not going to get stuck in game log watching against what people do against the Tigers and the Pirates. But I do think Savali has been better than most people thought, and I actually liked him last week, and I didn't go with it, which really bothered me. But I think this is I think he gets. This is, I guess, what my take is going to be, and I need to dig a little deeper, but I can't figure out these run total projections. I can't figure out when the world decided that Savali was one of the best pitchers in baseball. I know he pitched well against this team once, but I'm not going with it. If I don't like to stack anybody, and I don't think a pitcher's as good as everybody else does, that's a great spot to get a potentially low-owned Minnesota stack. And
I like Kepler. I like Rosario. I like these guys actually. Is Jay Cave going to play?
Jay Cave should play today.
Yeah, so I like all these guys. So I agree. If you can fit them in.
Well, you can fit them in because of guys like Cave, by the way, and you can use Jeffers as your catcher at 2,500. So then all of a sudden you can play Nelson Cruz and you can play the whole outfit. You play Nelson. You can't play the whole outfit. Cave is one of them, but you can play Nelson Cruz and either Rosario or Kepler, who I like both of, by the way. I prefer Kepler, but I actually think, like, if you want to talk about like recent form and how they're swinging, I really like the way that Rosario's swinging the bat, not just even in production. He's hitting the ball really hard. I feel like it's closer than maybe everyone always gravitates strictly to Kepler, and I just think that they're both really good. So Kepler's better, but I don't mind Rosario, and I think that the ownership's not going to be too crazy. I don't think you want to go play like Luis Arias at 3,500 at second. I don't need to go for the full stack like that. I don't like Polanco's price. I don't like Sano's price or Marwin's price. So those are the guys who I would be quickest to leave out.
Yeah, but I think Minnesota, they could be a team, again, if I can get those guys in, like you said, if I use Cave and Jeffers, for example, I can get them in. I think that's a decent team to go after, actually.
Yeah, I think this is the one that I'm going to end up doing in my big lineups because it's a weird small slate, and it's not – it's really obvious to tell where everybody's going to play to me. So this is, to me, is the pivot. You don't play players against Maeda, in my opinion, even on small slates. The guy, when he's on, is as good. I've watched him for so many years. I know how good he is. The only reason he's not more of a household name is because he was on a Dodger team that went like 8 deep and had 5 guys that were in the top 5 for Cy Young awards. Like, it was just impossible for him to get run. He was one of them one year, by the way. Same thing with Hyunjin Ryu until last year, and he almost won the Cy Young, or did he win the Cy Young? He had never gotten the love nationally, and I think you're going to see that Maeda truly is a great pitcher who will occasionally struggle, and this is not like an ideal matchup, but I really am not afraid of anybody past the top 4. So I would be into Maeda as a huge pivot off of Lynn, but I I think that after pitching 120 some odd pitches, which he hasn't really done before in a long time, I don't see them giving him that enough extra leash. There's just more. That's really the reason. And also, I could see him being a little tired, and it's a little bit of a letdown spot for him after the last game. There's a lot of reasons. Pitchers don't tend to perform well after no hitters or near no hitters. It's almost across the board. I mean, it's really, really hard to do after you use that much energy and you throw that many pitches, especially in today's baseball. And it's not like you got like an extra day's rest. You got no extra day's rest. So I can't get into Maeda strictly because of that.
All right, you want to move on to the Oakland, Texas game?
Right, yeah.
All right, so this is where two of the remaining pitchers I like are kind of on here, Lynn and Luzardo. And now again, this is going to be really chalky. Like the pitchers that I like, I'm just telling you going in is Bauer, Lynn, and Luzardo. These are my three guys.
We don't need to get crazy on pitching, I don't think.
What's that?
I don't think we necessarily need to get crazy on pitching.
Yeah. So I think that, again, depending on where you want to spend up on hitting or whatever it is, whether you need to or want to go down to Luzardo is for me going to be the question of how I build the lineups. I don't think I'm going to be pivoting off of pitchers really. I think I'm going to be trying to find hitting, to pivot that way. And I like both these guys. Now again, if you're not going to play Luzardo or Lynn, I mean, there's certainly bats you can play against them if you want. Like you could certainly play Matt Olson from Oakland, right? At first base. You could always play Matt Olson. And I don't know if I like anybody from Texas really. Actually, Nick Solak I like. And the guy, I know what, I had Todd Frazier and he got scratched the other day. I remember you told me you liked him in some other spot or whatever.
I liked him in the other spot because it was a very low strikeout pitcher.
Yeah. So again, these are not my favorite, but Solak's a decent value if you wanted to, in non Luzardo lineups, you can certainly do that. And you could always play Joey Gallo, even though lefty versus lefty, but I don't think I'm going to do it. And that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah, I think Luzardo is my number 3 as of right now. The price is just kind of silly. It really is silly. Like, I honestly don't even know why it's this low against this Texas team. Like, we've seen, other guys dominate this Texas team we saw that kid who has the highest run total against him tonight outside of Colorado, and that game was in Colorado. We saw him dominate this Texas team. So I'm not afraid of their bats in general. I like Luzardo a lot. And actually, in a funny way, like, you could argue that maybe there's more safety for him. Like, if you just look at run totals, and it's funny, he's got the lowest one against him of anybody on the slate, with the exception of the Flaherty situation, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. I think that Matt Olson is the tournament pivot. Like, if you're not playing, I'm almost so into Olson because I don't like that many bats in this slate. And he matches up. He profiles as somebody who should hit Lance Lynn extremely well. This guy struggles with power lefties, and he can't really get a fastball by him. Like, I mean, I just see this as a great spot for Olson. So if you're not playing Lance Lynn somewhere, I would play Olson. I don't really think I want to touch anybody else too much in this game. It would be Gallo. I don't mind him lefty, and he just gets forgotten about. So anytime you get one of the best 4 power hitters in baseball, maybe 5, maybe even higher actually, at 4.5, I don't know ownership. I just take it. So I like him a little bit, and I would consider like a tiny bit of Solak, but not anything to prioritize for me.
Okay.
Ready for Minnesota, Milwaukee?
Nope. Ready for Cincinnati, Milwaukee.
Oh, Cincinnati, Milwaukee. See, there's a sign. Do you know what it is? Sheets, it's those little omens that give you, if I'm still got the Twins on the brain, it's going to be a Twins night.
Yeah. So Trevor Bauer, it's pretty much the nut matchup, right? You got an uber strikeout pitcher against a team that just loves to strike out nowadays. So, I think Trevor Bauer is clearly the top play. He's wicked expensive relative to Lynn on FanDuel, which maybe
if it keeps his ownership down, I'm just all about it.
Maybe it keeps his ownership down. Is it possible?
Yeah. You can find some things to do.
The thing is, I don't know if it will, because like you said, I mean, FanDuel, they make it kind of easy to get whatever you want over there.
Yeah.
So maybe we're not fooling anybody, but nonetheless, I do think Bauer is clearly the best pitching option on the slate, and
look, his stealing.
Very few people are going to disagree with me. Let's put it that way.
Stealing is only like 50% of what his average game score is this year.
Yeah.
According to most sites. What is going on with these projections, man? I'm serious. I don't want to dissolve too much, but we'll get through this slate fast. Why are the projections so hideous for baseball pitchers? It used to be like a thing. People were actually good at this. Now it's like, I don't even think they're trying anymore. No, you see what I'm saying, right? Like there are guys who literally should have projections of like 18 or 16 that are projected at like 6, and there's guys who should have projections of like 27 that are projected at like 11. It doesn't make sense.
I didn't even notice that. That's so funny.
It just doesn't make any sense at all to me. Trevor Bauer's projection at between 16 to 20 fantasy points throughout the industry, a number that I think he may have been that low like in 2 games in the last 3 years. Like it doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
And it's always been like that every week. It's not like one outlier. It's every single day, every single day.
Yeah, I'll take the over on the 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, me too.
It's supposed to be the median, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
I'll take the over on that. All right, so on the other side, I don't know who's pitching for Milwaukee anyway.
Brett Anderson.
Okay, so this is the other team that one of the other teams I think I want to play. I don't know if they're going to be chalky also, but I do want to. I'm very interested in the Reds. Castellanos, Philip Ervin, if he cracks the lineup, is really cheap. Even Matt Davidson, if he cracks the lineup, he's, you know what I mean, him. And then Jesse Winker also. I think the Reds are going to be, a team that I want to try to get after if I'm going to play, Bauer and Lynn together. So the Reds are one of the teams that I'm actually looking at.
They seem like the team you'd want, and then there's 2 things that strike me. One, I have to look at their actual lineup, which is pretty putrid. It's actually nauseating how bad it is. So I have to look at that. I have to look at a team that scored more than 6 runs exactly 1 time in the last 15 games, and that's what I want. They are in a good hitter's park against a pitcher who doesn't walk anybody or walks hardly anybody. Does give up some power, so you can find some spots, but it just all scream. And then you get guys like Matt Davidson and Philip Ervin, who the last time they hit home runs in a game were pulled in their next at bat. So you're getting 2 at bats from those guys.
Right, I guess.
So everything you look at, then you get down to Kyle Farmer, and actually then it starts to see him a little bit appealing. But I wanted to get this spot. The real play in this game, the thing that makes me like them a little bit is that Brett Anderson will now go further. They're not using him as an opener right now. He pitched 6 innings in his last start against Milwaukee. Unless he's getting roughed up, they're not going to pull him as early, which makes me feel like you might be able to get more at bats out of these guys, but it also makes the stack look worse because obviously you want them to rough him up. So it's kind of a weird situation. So I think Castellanos also is way too expensive for a guy who's never hit 30 home runs in a year. I like Suarez. I'll take the long-term lefty numbers. That's my favorite play. I like Winker as an off-the-board play because I think that he would be the low-owned part of this. So if you do play a 3 or 4 man, I think Winker is the guy you want to try and include because they won't play the lefty-lefty. And I do think the other guys will get enough ownership. But when you look at the Davidson Ervin, you really are paying for potentially and very likely like 2 at bats. So
okay.
So if you're going to do that, I think you play the Davidson angle, not the Ervin one, because he's got the power. But it's always disheartening for me to play guys who get pulled after 2 at bats, like including when they hit home runs. I don't like it, and I have no reason to think they won't bring in a righty after Anderson, considering more of their bullpen is righties. So they have a couple, but anyway, that's just where I'm at. I will have some interest in these guys. Don't get me wrong, but this is one of those spots where it looks like, and I like Casali a little bit, and Farmer, both. I like both catchers. That's also another reason why they're weird to stack. I like Freddie Galvis better than I like most of the hitters, and he's batting 8th. Joey Votto is too expensive. Like, just everything about this makes it really annoying. And I think that people who take the easy route in baseball and just go, we get a Davidson and Ervin versus a lefty. Now, while that stuff does sometimes work out, I think it's just flawed logic. And you're paying for players at ownerships that they really shouldn't be, because you can't ever tell me that a guy who gets 2 at bats is as good as a guy who gets 5. Like, I don't care how good the spot is. It's never, ever going to be that good. So that's my overall stance and sort of a little history of ways I think it's important it's important to approach your constructions and really try and think about the actual individual bats of who you're stacking. And it could all blow up. You might get a home run from Ervin and Davidson in the first inning, which might not even be a conversation, but you're asking for a lot. And Brett Anderson's been pretty decent. And again, popularity. So that's my argument there. And then I do think there is one bat that is in play, and that's Christian Yelich. Bauer will give up bombs because he's an attacker. He loves to go after people, and he's not gonna mess around. He'll just try and throw it by you sometimes. So I think that he fits sort of the same mold as the Matt Olson thing, but he's a better hitter than Matt Olson is, and Bauer's a better pitcher than than Lynn. But still, it's just a guy you want to probably. I actually would consider prioritizing Yelich as a one-off if you weren't playing Bauer, because just ultimate leverage there. I mean, this is multi-home run upside that could completely throw a tournament your way.
So funny. I'm pulling up ownerships, and I wasn't anticipating Cincinnati getting ownership.
Oh, of course, yeah, they definitely are, especially because their prices are cheap. You can go double pitcher. I believe me, my first build led me to Cincinnati, and I was like, nope, this isn't right. This can't be right. No way this wins everything.
Yeah, my first build takes me somewhere totally different. We'll get there later. But I'm into Minnesota now more than I was. Okay, so you want to get on to the next game?
Let's do it. Oh, by the way, I mentioned the Minnesota thing. I hope I mentioned partly why also. Savali, having faced this team before, to me, I still put that as a feather in the cap of the hitters. I'm always going to give them a little bit of an edge when they face each other more. So that's another reason I like them. Anyway, we can move on. Sorry about that.
So this next game, I'm really gonna get the delivery of this wrong. Okay, but I'm gonna put it up. I'm gonna try it. So this game features a really potential Cy Young type pitcher, and then there's Jack Flaherty. See, I try to do that.
Oh, you actually did get me. Wait, you like Brad Keller?
No, I don't. But the point is that 2 of his last 3 games have just flashed brilliance. So I just figured I'd bring it up because a lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, how much better Brad Keller's got." With that said, Jack Flaherty, it would have been nice if I knew that he was going to be getting a full run, because that would make the pitching a little more interesting up at the top. But I'm just not willing to take that leap right now. And I'm not going to be playing Brad Keller. What I might be doing, though, is playing some St. Louis guys. And this could be the other way, another way to take sucker bets cheap. So for openers, Colton Wong at second base at 3,100. Carpenter at third base. Then you could play, I don't know, he's not as cheap or whatever, but Paul, just to make it work, like Paul DeJong at shortstop. And, you could always play the better. You could play Edman or Goldschmidt. I don't feel like paying that much for Goldschmidt today, though. But I think, again, if you want to play some other guys, some cheaper guys to make this type of build work, I do like the St. Louis guys. And if, God forbid, Keller gets ownership because of his recent performances, that would make it all the better, but I don't think that's going to happen. So that's where I'm at. KC guys, there was a couple guys that were cheap. I don't know if I'm going to end up playing them, though. I mean, O'Hearn is cheap, and Alex Gordon, whatever. But, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I actually think Keller is kind of interesting.
Okay, there you go.
I mean, it's 6.7. He's been good. He looks like a different guy. Like, I mean, but I don't know that you need it. Like, but we also have KC, who, since they've come back from the COVID, haven't exactly been lighting. I'm sorry, St. Louis haven't exactly lit the world on fire. You're looking at 6-3-2, 5-2 the last 5 games. They had the 9 in the first of the doubleheader that one. Then they had the 3-4-3-2. I mean, look at these numbers. This is like being shut down by everyone. Right. Not necessarily a ton of strikeouts in the lineup compared to some other teams, but 6.7K. If you did have a couple bats you wanted to spend up on, maybe you could play him with a Bauer. That's the lineup you use Olson in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you're real creative. You play him. Oh, I don't want to go to my A today. But anyway, I do think he's on the radar just because of where the St. Louis team, it just has to be like I don't know where they are mentally, right? Whatever they are. They just haven't been right from the plate. But I don't know who I want from them. Like, I initially wanted to try and take them. I think you can get to Keller. I mean, I still think overall this is not an elite pitcher. It's just he's going. I will play guys on hot streaks and pitchers that can have hot streaks too. Who are we playing? Like, I understand that they're cheap, but like, do I want to play Matt Carpenter at third and take it? Well, I'd rather play Suarez, but he's much more expensive. Carpenter, I guess, the spend down. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Colton Wong is too cheap. Like, you can play him. I don't really know who else I want. Like, even those guys, like Molina is fine. Like, Goldschmidt is crazy priced. DeYoung is not hitting and batting 7th now. Like, I don't know. I definitely see how a stack for St. Louis could win it, and I'm just going to take a quick look because I do think the weather in St. Louis this time of year usually is pretty awesome for hitting. Let's take a look at our little St. Louis. Only has smaller bump to bats today. It's really hot there. It's 90 degrees. But yeah, not only a small bump to that. So I'm not giving it as much love. I just, man, this is what I'm struggling with on this slate. Even the teams I like, I'm like, who do I want to play? Actually, I don't actually feel excited to play any of them. And then I always like playing my Twins, and this is a spot where it's much better for them than people actually think it is.
Nah, don't worry about it. We'll get you in the last game. We'll get you.
I'm gonna get the last game anyway. And I know what was gonna happen. I know exactly what's gonna happen. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. By the way, if Flaherty, we hear he has 80 pitches, I don't think on this is the slate you should do it, but you could. The guy is right. Like he would be right there with Bauer as best plays if at the same price. If they were healthy, he was good. So that's it for me.
Okay. So I didn't have Angels Houston. I didn't have interest in either of the pitchers. Although they both look really cheap.
Does everybody just hate Framber?
What's that?
Framber Valdez is like one of the ultimate examples. Like he hasn't been projected in double-digit fantasy points this season, and all he does is just go out there and dazzle the best teams in baseball every time. It's crazy. Sorry.
Yeah, he does. He does look just on. Look at this. Nothing but 25 fantasy points every freaking game, pretty much.
You're not like he's at Colorado. Right down one. It's the Dodgers. You know what I mean? He's had some matchups, man. I don't know. I'm not. He's in my player.
Why are we not playing him instead of Luzardo?
I think he's absolutely logical. The issue is there is some scary bats in that Angel lineup versus lefties. But I mean, Framber Valdez has been doing this every time. I have Framber Valdez right now, just a little less than Luzardo. But again, I'm not even sure I'm going to end up playing any of them because I might just play Lance Lynn.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I think? I think I'm just not playing Luzardo. That's what I think I'm going to do. I think that if I really have a build where I need Luzardo, I'll probably play something like Valdez. Maybe I'll do that.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about that.
All right. You like Sandoval at all?
No.
It's only 6,400.
I mean, I would much rather play Brett. Sandoval, I can promise you, is not. Is he? This is not. This is. If you play Sandoval tonight, you're going some ultimate brain stuff that I'm not even a part of. Congratulations to the winners.
Has Justin Upton been sent down in the minors yet, or no?
I actually heard he was going to be in the lineup today, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because if he hasn't been sent to the minors yet, he's in the lineup. I probably have to play him.
Yeah, he's 2.7. And historically is one of the best 15 guys versus lefties for power in baseball, and probably one of the best 5 on the slate. You know what I mean? I don't know. Go ahead.
After all that, is this what happens? This is Upton Trout season with Rendon and MVP Joe Adele to make it work. No,
I have no problem with all of these guys. They're all so especially Rendon and Trout are so good against lefties.
Yeah.
It makes the stack definitely in play, even against a good pitcher like Valdez. But I don't think you want to try to aim to stack it. I think for me, I would be trying to look at getting, hey, can I afford Trout and Rendon? Then I can use my cheap piece with Upton. And maybe you could round it out with a 4-man and even play the guy, can't believe I'm saying this, but I am, Albert Pujols, or Tommy La Stella. Or Anthony McBemboom. That's sort of the way I'm looking at it. You can do that. I'll have exposure to those guys as one-offs. I love Valdez as a pitcher. It's no secret. I've talked about this every time I get a chance. I really think he's good. But anybody can get got to by the best. I mean, just these Trout's numbers in these matchups make Babe Ruth's numbers look terrible. You know what I mean? When you get Trout against the lefty, I mean, even though Houston's not a great hitter's park, but when you get him outside of LA against the lefty, it's he's like a guy who has a 500 ISO. It's freaking ridiculous.
He should probably be 6,500.
He should be, yeah. I mean, I love Trout if you can get him in. The problem is, with the way the pitching is going to go, people aren't going to be able to get him in. Unless they play Luzardo and Framber or Keller, which I just don't see happening, man. I just feel like the more you think about it, as great as Trout is, somebody else at 3,500 or 4K or 5K even can hit a home run. It's hard to get to 6K.
Yeah.
But then again, I did make an argument for the ultimate, and also he's going to have ownership too. At least the guys like Yelich and Olsen won't have ownership. But they're expensive too.
I like Springer as a one-off.
Yeah.
I guess that's all I have to say about the Houston side.
Springer, number 2 guy. That I would have here. I mean, yeah, I think that Springer I mean, look,
Tucker's
they're going to be. This is the other place people are going to play. The problem is that they're not. I don't understand why people are projecting Tucker hits fourth. My guess is Tucker hits seventh or eighth tonight. But that's okay. I mean, that's fine with me. Actually, I don't mind him lefty. And then you could throw in Toro. Like the stack's not hard to do. I'm just gonna avoid it along with the chalky Cubs and play a little bit different myself today.
Yeah.
This is the highest projected run scoring team. Oh, second highest projected by 1/100th of a run. They are right there with the team we're going to talk about in the next game.
Yeah. So if you didn't like any of that or all of that, you get to do two things. Number one, I really didn't want to do this, but I figured I would bring him up. I mean, I hate playing this guy, but do you want to play Merrill Kelly against Colorado on the road? I mean, I wasn't going to do it, and I didn't even consider it until I just was staring at it. No, you know what? I'm not doing it.
I feel like you know.
I'm just not.
I know. I get it. I'm not doing it.
I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be playing David Peralta. I'm going to be playing Cole Calhoun for openers. And then, you know, Marte, maybe double Marte, Escobar. This is going to be the team that I probably go down with. It's probably Arizona.
I think this is going to be the third of the chalky spots.
It has to be, right?
Mega chalk. Like, that's my issue too, is that, so when I think about my overall DFS day and I say, oh, I'm going to play Cole Calhoun, 600 less than, you know, so there's a price difference between him and Kepler. Why am I doing that exactly? Like, I'm trying to think about it, you know?
Yeah.
I do think that when you get to the ultimate savings and also the much better hitter, in my opinion, who is David Peralta.
Yeah.
I love that play more than I love the Calhoun, but I do get it. I just think the outfield is very tough for me tonight because I like a lot of outfielders. One guy I didn't even mention in the last game, who's probably a better example because he's cheaper. I would so much rather play Michael Brantley, especially at lower ownership, than Cole Calhoun. It's not even close. You have one guy who's twice the hitter the other guy is, and one guy who's going to have 4 times the ownership, and and he's more expensive. So you get a much better play. Now, yes, the matchup is better. Well, is it really better, though? It's not that much better. These teams are 1/100th of a run off, and we're going to play Cole Calhoun. This is my thinking that used to pay off big time in baseball, and I've got to commit to it a little bit harder than I had in the past. And really just think about it, stuff like that. That's why I don't like these slates tonight. Because, yes, if Calhoun, of course he makes sense as part of an Arizona stack. But if he's going to be chalky and I can play these other hitters I like better at the same price, I'm just like, you know, I don't know. It's hard for me to like the stack. Other than the Twins, I don't really like any of these stacks. But this would be the one that I would probably have the most exposure to. It's just I don't like it. You know what I mean? And it's probably a little different than yours. I have less priority of Calhoun. I don't like Christian Walker either. I mean, this guy's hit 1 home run this year. Like, we're going to play a guy who hit 1 home run this year? I don't know. It just feels bad.
This is what happens when I think this is what happens when you play Bauer and Lynn, no? I mean.
You play these guys?
No, if you play Bauer and Lynn, aren't you kind of forced into this kind of decision? You know what I mean? Like.
Look, I've got Arizona stacks right now. I'm not going to say I won't. I'm just saying, like, when you think about it from an overall situation, like, who are we really – what bats do we need here? Like, I like Marte. He'd be my second favorite. Actually, he's the best bat, but he's just more expensive. And then I don't mind Escobar. I don't love third base as much today. But I would prefer to spend $500 more on Suarez. It's close. I don't want to play Starling Marte in the outfield when I've got so many outfielders that I love at 4.6. You know what I mean? That's just how I keep going through this team. So I'm like, who do I actually want to play? You got Nick Ahmed, who just takes up the shortstop spot, and he's 4,200, so obviously you're never playing him. Jake Lamb hasn't hit a home run since Clinton was president.
Right.
Not Clinton, but Obama. But anyway, it's still. It's just like, ugh. I just feel like this is my favorite stack of the night. It is. That's the thing that sucks. It's like I think they're going to score runs. I don't like it. I just don't.
Well, let me ask you this. If you just wanted to pick a team that was going to score the most runs, you know what I mean? Like, what team would it be, like, on the whole slate?
Either Houston or Chicago, which is what the – but the problem with Houston – so Houston's pricing also makes them a weird one too. And
well, my point is though, is that like, let's say you like Houston. Again, if it was just like playing draft or whatever, and you just had to pick the team that was going to score the most runs, it would be either Houston or Chicago. And like you said, Chicago is like easy to get to. Houston's less so. Maybe you are supposed to just pay down to pitching and get to Houston somehow.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you're seeing 30 out of somebody tonight from a pitcher.
Okay.
And I think that the other guys have enough variance where they could easily be like 15-ish, which
Okay.
winning that position by that much is so important. You know how important. You know, actually, the truth is, if not for the pricing, I would be making a pretty strong pitch for the Rockies right now.
That's interesting.
Because I think that they're off the board. Kelly still sucks against lefties. He absolutely gives up power. You've got guys I like in Blackman and Murphy, who would be my favorites. But Blackman is, 5,500. Seems kind of crazy. And then you've got Murphy is cheap. I like Murphy, actually. The more I think about it, maybe Murphy's the first baseman play. I actually like Murphy, so I'm going to make that one. And then there's always the thing about this game, if you find out the roof is open for any reason, we have to treat it a little bit more like it's closer to Colorado weather. You know what I mean? Like almost like a little bit more like that. Yeah, man, it's not,
Who else do you like from Houston? Just raw points.
Springer, I love.
Springer, who else?
I like, it does matter the batting order a little bit, like just in terms of raw points, but I guess, that's what I mean, Brantley, honestly. I actually like Brantley a ton.
I mean, because you could stack Houston if you use Bauer and Luzardo. I mean, you could do that easily.
Yeah, super chalk team. I don't want to do it.
Well, right. So who's going to be chalky? You know what I'm saying?
Too. Like all these guys have sucked. It's not like we're paying all these prices for a history that doesn't even exist of who they are anymore. Yeah, Altuve's had a couple decent games. Sure, hit a home run sometime, and I'll pay 5.1 for you. You know what I mean? Toro, sure, as a part of what used to be a good. Like I just am not that excited about it. I don't think Sandoval's that bad either, by the way. But if you ask me who's going to score the most runs more often, I think it's definitely Houston and Chicago. And a lot of that has to do with Chicago's case with the bullpen behind them in Detroit. But I don't doesn't mean the chalk. And it also doesn't mean they score runs with home runs necessarily. I mean, it's not like these teams are hitting for any power right now, either of them. They're hitting, but they're not, even when they hit, they don't hit for power. So I guess, I mean, instead of just looking at the most runs, I'm going to take my guys who hit home runs every day. And that's the Twins. I can miss on it. I can miss on somebody and still get a couple guys with some home runs. This team hits home runs every day.
Yeah.
I got Gurriel. Like I can't play Gurriel. I mean, Maldonado's 4.2. And so who's your Houston stack? Like, and then you got Kyle Tucker in a lefty-lefty matchup. So now I'm playing Kyle Tucker, probably batting 8th, over a guy who I love. Well, I can't play Kyle Tucker over Brantley. Is obviously the much better player than type Kyle Tucker. But the only difference is Kyle Tucker does offer the stolen base upside.
If you were going to play Minnesota, all right, which should be the outfielder that would get left out? Like if you have Kepler and Cruz, if you
I only had one lineup.
What's that?
I only had one lineup.
Yeah.
Well, it's because of pricing. Because I want to play those two pitchers, it would end up being either Cruz or Rosario.
Right.
Which feels also like people will have a naturally weird feeling, rightfully so, even to some extent, about stacking Minnesota without playing Nelson Cruz. But I just remind you that this guy can get, like, he's a patient guy. He walks every day at least once. If they pitch around him 3 times, that's enough of a reason for me to look for Kepler, Rosario, and Cave. I'm coming more and more on board with the Minnesota thing. Like I really am.
Stacking against Savali's no bargain either, though. I mean,
no bargain. You mean? What do you mean?
I mean, like it's not that easy. I mean, like he's not that bad. I mean,
well, I mean, what are we talking about really? Like we're talking about a 5-game sample size, and I believe he's improved. I do believe it. I also believe this team has lit up a lot better pitchers than this, and you're gonna throw a guy who doesn't. He has this year. That's the weird part. But in general, does not have high strikeout upside. I think he's a little bit of an odd one for me. I don't know entirely who he is as a pitcher. And against Minnesota, that's plenty of reason because all the other guys talking about picking on, I don't think are bad either. Now, Savali's better than these guys, but I don't know if he's that much. Well, for certainly, he's not going to be better than Casey Mize. Casey Mize will be better than Savali. And then we don't know that is he really that much better than Patrick Sandoval? I really don't know. Like, I honestly don't think these are like huge swings between the two of them. And Minnesota's offense is much better than all these other offenses are, just in general, just flat out. The offensive baseball. Dodgers, Twins, Yankees. There's not even anybody else in that conversation when you talk about DFS because they all have the power. And the Yankees, even without Judge and Stanton, somehow are still one of them. But that's the teams you want to try and target in baseball, and they're all patient and they all have pop. I think I'm just going to die on this hill with Minnesota today a little bit on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I'm going to play a bunch of different sets of things, and I'm going to get myself some Colorado stacks over on FanDuel. I'm going to get myself some Detroit stacks over there where no one will play them, where they might play some of them on DraftKings. I'm going to get myself some of the Reds, but I want to do the Reds that are going to stay in the game for more than 2 at-bats, preferably, even though the other ones would probably sneak into a couple lineups. I want to get some exposure to – by the way, the one team we didn't talk about, and this is the super maybe over-the-top extreme that you don't need, but you're going to be alone with it. I think there's an argument for Kansas City here. And that's your ultimate over-the-top brain play. If you're playing a bunch of lineups on the $5, you definitely try and find a way because we don't know what's happening with Flaherty after only letting him throw 40 pitches. So you've got that going for you. You have literally what's going to be on a small slate. Like we talk about low ownership, you're talking about like 2 and 3% guys. You know what I mean?
Well, and as I mentioned, you can make it work with a couple of cheapies. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you could play, what's his face, O'Hearn and Alex Gordon for openers. You know what I mean? Then you could spend for your Solaires and Merrifields and whatever.
Right. Like this is what I'm saying. Like guys who are going to play Christian Walker at first base, but say I don't want to play Ryan O'Hearn because he hasn't had a home run this year. And I would respond, well, he has more power than Christian Walker. He platoons, and Christian Walker has 1 home run this year. So this is the kind of stuff that I keep thinking about. Like, are these other plays really that much better than these? And while I have some Arizona, do I think that I need them? No. I don't feel like I need any of these teams. Yeah. I might be looking at like a 3-2-2 kind of a deal or some deal like that. But mostly, if I stack, it's going to mostly be the Twins.
Yeah, I think that, again, I usually like to go overboard and just stack when I shouldn't. And even me, like, I'm looking at today as like, be like a stock picker's market. You know, I pick like a 2-3-2, 3-3-1, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's very hard for a stack to get there, except, like you said, the Twins can always get there.
The problem with the Twins, though, they're easier on FanDuel because you can't play all 4 outfielders. You want the outfielders the most of everybody for the Twins, right? That's the position you want the most.
Right.
And it's really hard to do because I love David Peralta. Like he's like one of my favorite overall plays on the slate. But yeah, it just makes it a little bit tricky if you try and do the Twins like that. And then it's hard to figure out the rest of your, like who else you're playing and where. By the way, as one-offs though, I did mention Caratini for the Cubs. There are 2 guys who I love for the Cubs, and that's Caratini and Baez. Those are my 2 preference ones for the Cubs. And take it for what you will, you know what I mean? Play whoever you want, but those would be the guys who I would try and get in if I was really focused on the Cubs. But if you play the catcher, that's why the catcher comes in though, because he's cheap. Yeah, you can pretty much do exactly what you want. I like this actually. I'm feeling better about this lineup build. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. All right. So we know who we're going with and all that stuff. Guys, hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up anywhere to ask us questions. Hit us up on the chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate all you guys. We will be doing some live before lock shows this week, whether Sheets is there or not. I've got my stream that's finished getting set up later today. So we're going to be doing some coming up, and hopefully we're going to have some sweat shows as well. And you'll get to watch me freak out when Luka hurts himself and I get to storm off like a baby. And leave and just tell the whole industry and the world, leave me alone for 2 days. All right, Sheets. For anything else, for Sheets, I'm Bobby saying good luck out there, guys. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboard.